And this brings us to our final
Absolutely.
panelist, David Lorimer, a visionary thinker and pioneer in promoting a holistic understanding of human potential. And David has dedicated his career to bridging the realms of science and spirituality and a deeper integration that speaks to both the mind and the heart. And today he'll share his insights on how this approach can guide us to a more enlightened and sustainable future for humanity. Thank you, David.
Thanks very much, Susan, and hello, everybody. Evening, morning, middle of the night. I don't know where you are. I'm actually going to go off-piste because I've been very moved and stirred in the last 24 hours, and I think I'll be able to explain why. I'm sitting in here in my study in France on a chair designed by my grandfather, Sir Robert Lorimer. Here he is with his dog, and at a bureau designed by him as well. Where did these start? In his imagination. They were dreamt, they were designed, they were then produced by wonderful craftsmen in Edinburgh. And I want to read you a brief part of the eulogy at his service. And in 1929, says, by his labors, he's given our nation many a poem in wood and stone, which will continue to impress on the minds of people the sense of another and greater world which surrounds us, and which will lift the thoughts of generations yet unborn to that house of God, not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. The workmen die, the dreamers pass away, but the dreams, the idealism, the vision, and the work remain. The dreams, the idealism, the vision, and the work remain. And that's why we're here together having this meeting, because we are dreaming and enacting something new into being. We live in incredibly dangerous times. I don't need to tell everybody that. And I'm minded of the campaign against nuclear disarmament in the 1950s with Russell and Einstein and later Albert Schweitzer. And what did they say? Remember your humanity and forget the rest. Remember your humanity and forget the rest. And I think that's where we are at the moment. We have to remember this deep humanity that we all share. And in Schweitzer's terms, he talked about spiritual development being the most important, more than social and technological development, and that our task is to become more finely and deeply human, more finely and deeply human. So we all have to ask ourselves, what does that mean in my case? How can I become more finely and deeply human? And what this certainly involves is an intrinsic, non-instrumental understanding of the human being. And here's Albert Schweitzer for you. And I put a link to his Nobel Peace Prize speech in the chat, which I recommend you have a look at. And in this sense, a new book by Sherto Gill couldn't be more important. And this is it here. It's called Lest We Lose Love, Rediscovering the Core of Western Culture. This should be studied and enacted in all cultures, and this should be a core curriculum item in our schools, which also I wanted to mention this is to bring in the feminine, the sacred feminine, divine feminine, in balance, of course, with the sacred and divine masculine. And what she's been working on is what she calls a narrative of love, a narrative of love. David Cadman's been working on this. And I've got one more point to make, and then I'm going to read you a poem. And here is the Bulgarian sage Peter Dunov, Beinsa Duno, whose work I've been following and living for the last nearly 40 years. He has 5 principles on which the new culture will be based, and these are love, wisdom, truth, justice, and goodness. And he says it's not a belief system that will save us or transform the world. It's understanding and embodying these principles, understanding love, wisdom, truth, justice, and goodness. And on the Scottish mace, oddly enough, are the words wisdom, compassion, integrity, and and wisdom, justice, compassion, integrity. And I'd love to see all politicians take an oath to uphold those principles. So here's my poem. And I was debating which poem to read, and I could read one more if anybody would like this at the end, but I want to read you this one called The Beating Drum of War. And I use a Russian proverb quoted by Solzhenitsyn in his Nobel Prize 1970 acceptance speech, Nobel Prize for Literature. One word of truth outweighs the whole world. One word of truth outweighs the whole world. The beating drum of war and death grimly grates and grinds our humanity to dust. Echoing ominously down dark corridors of power, where men as hawks securely scheme behind closed doors, making carefully calculated moves on the grand chessboard for their own strategic advantage. Their ceaseless propaganda is drummed out in unison, demonizing the enemy, drilling us with pitiless fear into submission and obedience, trampling us all underfoot. What do they care? Why bother considering the mothers, the children, the massacre of the innocents, the bloody gore of the combatants, the pulverization of communities? Out of sight, out of mind. They profit from destruction. They profit from reconstruction. This is how the world works. This is how the world ends. This is how the heart stops. Where is the throbbing pulse of love, the beating drum of life? Where are the warriors of the spirit? Where is the flashing sword of truth? Where are we, the only guardians of peace? Rising and standing together, gathering and moving together, we can and must prevail together. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for your beautiful poem and powerful, and for rounding out this session. I think to realise our potential and achieve wiser, kinder, fairer and conscious societies, we really need to integrate these deeper dimensions of our humanity.
How do we make ourselves heard? That's my question.
Yes.
How do we rise up as humanity?
And that is a perfect way to begin our discussion.